Okay, guys, I just finished watching Squid Game Season 2, and I thought that I would make a video talking about it because I haven't really seen a whole lot of discourse about it on the internet this time around. I think there's like so many things going on in the world that people just aren't talking about television shows right now, but I think that like go down in history as being one of the better second seasons of a TV show, especially one that's come out on Netflix. And so I thought that I would sort of make a video about it that could be kind of evergreen and all that stuff. There's going to be spoilers in this video. If you haven't watched it yet and you want to watch it at some point and you don't want to be spoiled whatsoever, then don't watch this video yet. Go watch the entirety of Squid Game Season 2 or Season 1 and Season 2 and come back. It's a really, really good show, and I heavily suggest that you do, especially if you like things like David Lynch, Alfred Hitchcock, all those kinds of things. It's great television, honestly. Like, I'm somebody who really needs there to be a lot of enthralling things happening in a television show. So often if I'm telling you that there's a show that's good, you know that like it's at the very least very exciting and very nail-bitey the whole time. So that's where I'm coming from with all of this. So let's get into it. Season 2, guys. If you watch Squid Game Season 1, you know that at the end of Season 1, our main character, 456, has won all of that prize money, 45.6 billion won, which is multiple hundreds of million. He is trying to go see his daughter in America, and then right at the end, he sees the guy who recruited him for the Squid Games in the last season, and he is going to go leave this plane that he's about to get on in hopes to try to figure out what's happening with the Squid Games, knowing that they're still going on, and he wants to put an end to it. He feels traumatized. He's dealing with lots of things. We often see him having dreams about the Squid Games, having dreams about failing people and losing people and having people die in front of him, and he's suffering very heavily. We can tell he's lost a bunch of weight. His hair is short now. They definitely made him look way more grizzled and tired and beaten down. He's obviously been looking for these people for a while. I think that it ends up being like 3 years later, so he knows that 3 separate games have happened over the course of his time looking, and he has been unable to find them. The group that originally he owed money to, the whole reason he went into the Squid Games, he's paid off all of that debt, and now he's employing them to help him try to find this group of people. And so that's where we pick up the storyline. This show does really interesting things thematically. There are a lot of context and subtext that's happening underneath the hood that I think that's very easy to miss if you're not paying attention, and that's sort of what makes the story really interesting to me. From the very beginning, we are sort of put to this fire of people will make decisions that are bad for themselves in their own life because they think that they are the ones who are going to win. Everybody has this sort of feeling inside of them that they are a winner, even when all of the evidence is stacked against them to the contrary. They tend to make decisions that are bad for them. Within the first 2 episodes, we find the guy who is recruiting all of these people, the slapper, the dude who's playing I can't remember what the name of the game is, where you throw the things down and you have to flip one over by hitting it with the other one, and then if you do, you get to slap the other person in the face. We find that guy, and we get this little watch of his life. He's being tailed by 2 of the gangsters who have been recruited to help 456 find him. And so we follow him around a little bit, and we get to see what his day-to-day life is like, and it's weird, dude. He goes and buys a whole bunch of lottery tickets. He also buys a whole bunch of bread, and he goes to this homeless circle in South Korea, and he's making everyone choose in this homeless community. Do you want a lottery ticket, or do you want a bread roll? And so the majority of everybody chooses a lottery ticket. Like, everybody, gets these scratch-offs from him. They scratch off, and almost everybody loses. In fact, I think everybody loses, and only like one guy that we see takes a bread roll. And then at the end of that little session, after he's given everybody their opportunity to choose, he takes all the bread rolls into the middle of the circle, and he dumps them all out on the ground, and everyone's sort of piling around him. They think he's going to give them all to them, and he pushes them back, and he says, "No, you had your opportunity," and he just starts stomping on all of these bread rolls, dude. And it's so interesting because he's like, I'm not wasting this food, you're wasting this food. And this is this key point that comes back over and over and over again. This is the setup for the entire show right here. This idea of like, even though I'm the one stomping on this, you all made the choice to have me stomp on this. Now, you didn't completely know all of the things that were going on, but I set up the basics of the rules. You didn't know what the outcome would be. You didn't know what the like de facto situation at the end of this would be, but you knew that I was giving you the choice between this lottery ticket and these bread rolls. And so the guilt is on your hands, which is something that like I don't really think that I agree with very heavily. Like I do think that you at the end of the day had a choice yourself, and that's you could have just like been a nice person and given them all of those bread rolls anyways. I don't even know that the show is believing this concept as well. I don't think that the director really feels this way. I just think this is the setup for the villains in this show. Like this is what they're trying to show you is the mentality of the people who are running the Squid Games, that there are all of these people in this world who are working into this scenario of like human sacrifice in order to give one person a whole bunch of money, and like what will people do for money, and they're all sort of washing their hands of it. They all feel like I'm not doing anything wrong. These people signed up to these games, they're playing these games, and when they lose they die, and they know that after the first game, and they continue going on, and they make their choice, and we're just the people who are providing the choice for them. That's all this is for us. We're not actually evil. We don't want these people to die. This is just what's happening. So as the show goes on, 456, like I said, they found this guy. They're tailing him. The two gangsters who are tailing this dude, they both get captured because 456 can't get there in time. And they get captured. One of them ends up being killed, but things sort of twist and turn in a way, and 456 ends up meeting that guy. He meets this guy. They play a game of Russian roulette. The guy dies, blah, blah, blah. They end up like finding out where they can meet the people who are in charge of this. They go and meet the people who are in charge of this. 456 ends up, in order to like save his friends, he ends up being re-entered into the games, and we're back inside of the games with someone who has already previously won the games. That's where the bulk of this show really starts. There are still people behind the scenes trying to find this island. You find out sort of as the show goes on that the reach of these people who are running the games is much deeper than what you thought it was. There's a lot of people in cahoots with it. Everyone sort of knows about it. And so there's a lot of twists and turns that come about from that, for sure. Over the course of the games, we are once again like faced with this new theme that sort of pops up, which is the idea that like your believing in yourself is an illness, you're being controlled without realizing it, that you're not actually like the main character that you see yourself as. And we see all of that through the lens of 456, but also through the lens of all these other people. In the games this year, there is a new mechanic built in where at the end of every single game, you get to vote whether or not you want to stay in the games or if you want to leave the games. And if the majority wins to leave the games end right then and there, and the money comes down, and it gets divided amongst all the surviving players. Now, this is where things get incredibly odd, is that the people who are still alive after every round, you start to notice this thing is going on with them. We have this selection bias that's already happened where the people who get targeted to be brought into these games are these sort of hyper, I am the one who will win, I love gambling, like I have a winner's blood, winners win, baby, that kind of stuff going on inside of their head. And because of that, they just like do not care that they're gambling with their lives. They feel like all I'm doing is letting all of these other people die, and then I get more money. So the games continue to progress forward over and over and over again. You see these plot lines sort of play out with different characters where they have reasons to stay, they have reasons to go, and inevitably the games continue running their course while 456 is trying to change the course of it. It's interesting that he can stay as committed to the bit of being the hero and trying to save all these people's lives the entire time, even though he can do the math of like every time the games happen, the money basically doubles, which means that half of the people are pretty much dying every single time. And he still thinks that he's saving a bunch of people, even though with his being there, the games really aren't changing at all. Like by the end of the fourth game or the third game, by the end of the third game, there are only like 50 people left or whatever, or 100 people left, I think is what it ends up being. And that's exactly where it's supposed to be. And yet he still thinks that he's like making some kind of difference in this world. He has been like sort of infected by this exact same mentality that everybody else has been infected with during the course of these games, where he thinks that he's the main character, so he's not worried about like the choices that he's making. He believes that everything that he's doing is right. He has no second guessing of himself. The only thing is that he's the one who won the lottery in the last show and like is the one who actually made it out. And this is like where the story gets like very strange to me personally. This is the only plot hole that I sort of find with this whole season is that there's a character named Young Il who that stands for 01. He's number one in the like he got the actual number of number one. And he's like the guy who's in charge of the games, and he's been dropped into the games with everybody else to sort of change things just a little bit from behind the scenes. He buddies with 456 right off rip, and he starts to like be way too comfortable with him, and he's like doing all these little things that are changing the state of what's happening, and 456 never catches on to it, even though in the last games there was literally a plant, and he knew that going into these games that they have a tendency to plant people, and yet he still is like none the wiser that this guy who is unbelievably tough and capable of basically anything and never dies and has these weird moments where he snaps on people and is hyper violent and even commits murder at one point. Like, he never questions of whether or not this guy is a good guy or if he's some kind of plant again. And I find that a little bit peculiar and hard to believe at times. As the show continues on, we start to see more and more people drop off. We see plot lines start wrapping up. And then at the end of this show, once again, I'm trying to like leave as many spoilers out, but I have to spoil some things. At the end of the show, we're left with a bigger cliffhanger than we've ever been left with in television history, perhaps, which is that right in the middle of the games, not even like seeing a conclusion of this season in any kind of way, really, we get a just hard stop of the show. It just ends. Season 2 only has 7 episodes. To me, it felt almost like they didn't have time to finish it. I didn't even know Squid Game Season 2 was coming out before they put this out, but sure enough, it ends immediately and left me wanting to go online and figure out whether or not they were putting out more episodes in the next couple months, if this was going to be like a 2-parter of a season or something. But no, this is just the end of Season 2, and we're left with basically no resolution to what's happening whatsoever. We have more questions than answers, and we're all really stressed out, basically, is the way that I would describe the ending of this show. I think this entire like thing that's going on with Squid Games is really amazing. I think that they are unbelievably good at keeping you enthralled and stressed the entire time. It reminds me of something like Baby Reindeer, except there is no resolution, so you don't feel good at the end of it. I'm still thinking about this show, and I'll continue to think about it for a very long time. If you haven't watched Squid Games at this point, I definitely think you should. It's still top on Netflix, even though people aren't really talking about it. And yeah, I think that it's a great season. It's as good, if not better, than season 1. And I think that it really is worth the watch if you haven't seen it yet. Or if you have seen it, you can probably agree with me that it was very good and I enjoyed it a lot. And I will continue to watch Squid Games as it comes out. That's the video, fellas. Be safe out there. Thank you for watching. And yeah, guys, watch Squid Games. It's good. Bye.